Well, as Heather mentioned earlier, Jack Valero is with us in the studio. He's the co-founder of Catholic Voices, a group which aims to improve the representation of the Catholic Church in the media. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. How damning is this report for the institution of the papacy? Because it makes clear that these child sex abusers were operating, or abusers were operating under the authority of the Holy See.
I think it's a terrible report with lots of inaccuracies like the one you just said. And the main thing I find wrong with it, and there are many things wrong with it throughout, full of errors, is that it takes absolutely no account of the history of abuse reform that's been going on in the Catholic Church in the last 12 years, since 2001.
But that's not the issue, is it?
No,
the issue
what
is
it
not,
says is that it's going on.
The issue is that there's a document, there's clear evidence of systematic, consistent abuse of children. That's the point.
Yes, we knew that there had been abuse of children in the 80s and the 90s, but lots of procedures and have been put in place, and guidelines have been put in place throughout the world, in the UK in 2001, in the US in 2002. This had been going on, and they've become the best in the world. Governments have praised them. Other organizations are copying them. This is not anywhere in the report. In the report, you would think that priests are being moved from parish to parish today, that perpetrators are being hidden today. None of that is happening. So this is what's wrong. This is so inaccurate. This report really shames the UN into doing some terrible job here.
Are you saying that the child abuse is not going on now in the Catholic Church?
Well, it's not going on in the way that is described there. If there should be any abuse in priests now, and an accusation is made, this is dealt with immediately. The priest is removed and handed over to the police everywhere, and if the police find him guilty, he's laicized. He stops being a priest from then on. So the guidelines are really tough, and these guidelines, which started in the UK and the US, now are being spread all around the world. And the Pope Benedict said this must be spread around the world. Pope Francis has said this must be spread around the world. They've all said it, and this is happening. So all this was explained in January by the two people who went from the Holy See to this committee, and none of what they say is in the report. It's amazing.
But for an institution like the Vatican, that is supposed to be a sterling moral authority, I mean, you can understand the vehemence of this report because the UN asks repeatedly for a file on these child abusers so that they can be taken, prosecuted if necessary, and they refuse. What sort of impression do you think that conveys?
Well, that's a misunderstanding too, because all the files of abuses, the Church isn't like a multinational with HQ in Rome. The Church is run in each diocese separately in each country, and all the files are in the... Just a minute. All the files are in the diocese, held by the bishops, and whenever the police have asked for those files, they've been given over to the police. So there are no perpetrators in place hiding in the Church. There are no perpetrators hiding in the Vatican. All this is fantasy. All the files that they want are available in the diocese.
The UN
they have the idea.
The
UN have the idea that all these files and people are hidden in the Vatican. That's just not true. The Vatican have copies of some documents, and the reason the Vatican have copies is because they said the diocese are not doing their job fast enough. So we want copies to check on the diocese that they're doing the job fast enough.
But why didn't they release those copies?
No, those documents are just copies to make them go fast enough. The documents come from the diocese and they've already been given to the police. This is the fallacy here, that we're saying there's some secret documents like the Da Vinci Code hidden in the vaults of the Vatican. Well, that's just not true.
So are you satisfied that the new guidelines set up by the Vatican will adequately protect children from rampaging priests?
Absolutely satisfied, and the guidelines are not set by the Vatican. The guidelines are set by each diocese separately. So we have guidelines in the UK, they have different guidelines in the US, they have different guidelines in Kenya. In every country, they follow the laws of the country. So what's a crime in the country is handed over to the police immediately. And the Church always cooperates with the police. And all the things that went wrong in the past, which were very bad, and the main thing now is to make sure that those victims, those people who were hurt, are looked after and are compensated. And I'm afraid a report like this, so full of inaccuracies, hinders this process of healing and helping the victims, because we're not getting to the truth. This is what gets me.
Mr. Valero, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
And you're watching the Arise News Hour.